Check, check, check. Testing 1, 2. Check, check. Echo. Check, check. You hear me now? Okay. Back. Well, okay. Let me see if I can turn it up. How it sound now? Sound better? We live, baby. We live. We lit, baby. We lit. Okay, I can see the movement of the mic in there too. A little louder. How I sound now? Tell me if I peak out now. Good money. Tastes like good food when I talk. No, wait. Let's get it. All good. All right. Back. Back. ETE Imhotep Seni Senet Ankwastejed Anku Jaseneb Dua Henu for listening. Another one. We back. Part two, and we just getting more involved. We're getting more involved. Before, like I said, this particular discussion is about ethnicity in ancient Egypt. We're going to discuss, of course, the African presence there. We're going to discuss the Arab presence there, and we're also going to discuss the European presence there. But before we get there, there's a lot of things that we have to uncover because when when you're around the conscious community, you hear a lot of things that just aren't true. You just hear stuff that's not true. Uh, the other day I heard we can't put the rituals together. And then anybody's been watching the Sasa event that I shared in the Heck in the Chair room in the Temple of Ba'u Imra, the soul. They just showed you they put together the Hellenistic ritual. They put it together from start to finish. Uh, I even threw the question in there about the Egypt. They was like, "Yes, we have the daily ritual. It's a little more difficult, but we have the simple stuff concerned." Just because people make mockery and nonsense, um, and they come up with their own conclusions. Most of them are like I showed Chief X to be a couch potato. Shout out to Chief X, that's still our brother. He if you've never been, if you haven't gone, if you haven't really done research, who made you an authority? Who crowned you an authority on anything ancient, anything? You ain't even been over there. Most of them haven't seen artifacts. A lot of them have never been to the Cairo Museum. A lot of them have never, like I said, left their houses. Before we get started, though, we gotta shout them out. Original 9, my man BP Dasher Ab is in the building. Um, it's about 5 of us in the chat right now, which is good. That's how I like it. I don't like a million cats in the mix. Some of my videos, we got 1,000 and some change. I don't need that all the time. This is for those who are really concentrated, who wanna really know what's going on. Not that pseudo information you see me all up like a piece of paper and throw away in the trash in one show when I talk to some of these characters they don't know. They're phony. So anyway, today I understand there was some issues with the presentation the other time when I tried to share my screen. Today, let me know there's any issues. I think that's sharing right there. I'm gonna look and see if it's showing. Let me see. I believe, yep, it's showing perfect. So we're going to continue in these 3 books because they say something very important. And before we even get started in the books, let's go real quick because you always hear terms like the Tasian culture, the Natufian, the this, the that. Who are these people? You see their Tasa right here. You see This is Kemet. This is the Happy River right here. This is Nahesi Land, all down here. Nubia, Kush, all of this here. This is the Levant over here. Let's read real quick on Tajin culture because there a lot of misnomers. The Tajin culture is possibly one of the oldest known pre-dynastic cultures in Upper Egypt, which evolved around 4500 BC. It is named for the burials found at Der Tassa, a site on the east bank of the Nile. We see it right there. Located between Asut and Akhmim, there is no general agreement about the proposed Tajin culture, and some scholars since Baumgartel in 55 has suggested it is a part of the Badarian culture rather than a separate entity. Let's go a little further down. As soon as we get a little further down, what's the first thing it says? Blacktop pottery, also a type of red brown pottery. So we got some mixture going on, which has been painted black on its top and interior. The reason I point out this blacktop pottery is because as soon as you see blacktop pottery, guess who's there? Nahesi people. Nubians, so to speak. They're Nehesi there. There's definitely Nehesi there. Possibly Maasai there. Possibly Southerners there. We'll cover that in a minute. Let's just scoot down a little bit. Remember, this pottery is vital to the dating of the various pre-dynastic Egyptian civilizations. These are the civilizations that make up ancient Egypt. So you know who's there. Since all the dates for the pre-dynastic period are tenuous at best, that's why I say dating is a little difficult in these times. We can't really go with, oh, 3000 BC because the culture appears to stretch at least back to 22. And that's from Petrie, that's from all your Egyptologists. It appears to stretch further. Ancient Greeks and Romans say the same thing, except for they give it a further date. They'll say 36,000, right? And it goes back further and further the closer we look to this. We know the 3000 came from modern dating. This here, 4500 BC. That's modern dating. Anyway, what's important is, where is it at? Progress the handles, pottery evolved, blah, 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 Tajin, Badarian, this, that, other, scale between this. Skulls excavated from Badarian, Amaratrian, and Natufian sites tend instead to be smaller and narrow. And that's kind of what we're going to tackle today because, as you can see, archaeological evidence has suggested that the Tajin and Badarian Nile Valley sites were a peripheral network of earlier African cultures that featured the movement of Badarian, Saharan, Nubian, and who? Nilotic populations. Who do you see in that Nilotic population description? And this is the discussion we had the other day with some of the brothers who doubt that the Khoisan could ever be there, who doubt that Maasai could ever be there, who are couch potatoes, basically. So when you look at Nilotic peoples, they inhabit South Sudan, Sudan, Egypt, Ethiopia, Uganda, Kenya, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, some of me there, Rwanda, some of me there, Burundi, and Tanzania. Among these are the Burundi speaking peoples, Karo peoples, Luau people. Luau, if you know, is boy. All right. So this is what you see. Bruce Williams, Egyptologist, has stated the Tajin period is significantly related to the Neolithic of Sudanese Saharan tradition, as found just north of Khartoum and near Dongala in the Sudan. So, who are you finding there? That's some of the pottery, some Tajin stuff. Who are you finding there when people ask the question, when people make the statements, "Oh, they couldn't have been here. Oh, you saying all of Africa." Duh, we've been saying that. Ancient Kemet was a melting pot of ancient Africans. This is known. This is not new stuff. This is just stuff they haven't researched. And you know if you followed some of their studies, they don't study much. They don't show a whole lot because they don't know a whole lot. They don't even know where to go. What they do is they watch shows that I do and then start to go do shows on locations or specificities that I've mentioned, specifics that I've mentioned. Of course, you'll seem scholarly after you pull up a bunch of information uh, from somebody who just discussed something. And then if you take the opposite narration, meaning the opposite argument saying they're not there, you will sound like a professional if you're reading from somebody's opposite view. Doesn't mean you're right, just means that's how you did your homework. You listened to somebody, got a little info, got an article or two, came back and start trying to chop it up. That's what you did. Let's find out a little more. Lately, I've been showing some ancient Libyans, which are important because remember who makes up pre-dynastic Egypt. We're gonna get to those in a minute. Let's look in the book real quick, because remember in this book last time, it told us how they classified the African cultures there. They were saying Ethiopians weren't black. They were saying Nubians weren't black. They were saying everybody wasn't black. The ancient Libyans weren't black. And so let's look a little further to see what's going on in these misclassifications. Let's get down. It seems that the modern anthropology is beginning to realize how inadequate our knowledge is in this field. Remember, we read this last time. On this score, I need only quote word for word the recent conclusions of a study of Paleolithic human remains discovered in Nubia, referring to the lack of material for comparison and especially to the fact that the old anthropological studies from which such material is drawn are based essentially on craniology and not on morphology. An anthropologist writes, comparisons make lumpers of us all. Even the most ardent splitters in any such study of African material raises the problem of Negro origins. Why is Negro origins a problem? Why? Because at the time the world was very racist. Okay. Transatlantic slave trade happened. You know, in America, we're just starting to really see some type of effect from civil rights. You understand? So all this is going on. If we talk about the time E.A. Wallace Budge and them lived, they're still trying to coin pro Marcus Garvey. So what do you expect them to write? What do you expect to come out of the books of ancient times? A lot of them can't say what they truly think on a situation. They're pressured, they're paid to do certain things, right? So once again, it says comparisons make lumpers of us all, even the most ardent splitters, and any such study of African material raises the problem of Negro origins. That should never be a problem. If we're all, that should never be a problem. So don't make it one. In the absence of fossils, epidermis caution is wise. There are no skeletal attributes that are diagnostically negroid, and we are aware of the great morphological variations among those living groups that are classified together on the basis of skin pigmentation. The author concludes any use of the material to elucidate Negro originals must await a more sophisticated search for distinctive features of the Negroid skeleton, if such exist. Vague references to prognathism and limb proportions are of little value. This is Anderson. Now, Anderson was quoted by my brother Ngozi the other day. I said, why would you use Anderson's work when you know it's racially influenced? Like badly racially. He went over there for a particular thing. We're going to show something in a minute. because we're gonna look at the bodies he claimed weren't black, right? Not the physicality body. We're gonna look at the culture, the people that he called non-blacks. We're gonna see them in a minute. Um, these remarks remind me of an observation by a 19th century man of letters, a layman, not an anthropologist, which I think is also worth as it goes straight to the heart of the problem. At Kosier, we saw pilgrims from all parts of Africa. I became convinced that the Negro race is even more varied than the white race. All kinds of profile are to be found among them, ranging from the purest Caucasian to the cretin and almost the imbecile. So this is another take here from somebody else correcting Anderson, saying, "See all types of Negroes, including you can see the Caucasian coming out of the Negro culture, ranging from the purest Caucasian to the certain almost imbecile. I became convinced that the Negro race is even more varied than the white race." So he can see this. Let's go a little further. This observation on the diversity of the black race shows, I think, how much the problem of the population of ancient Egypt has been distorted, how wrongly it has been approached, and how, in the last analysis, it is a false problem. On the one hand, the white Egyptian racial type, and on the other, a black or Negro type have been conjured out of thin air. Both types are in some respects caricatures. How is it possible to speak of a white type when, as statistical studies prove, more than a third of the population was Negroid? So if you're a European viewer right now, don't be shocked because you are there eventually. You are even there in some of the ancient times, but you're not the founders and you're not really found early on. So we're looking at the cultures that are actually there at the time. Doesn't mean we won't get to you. We're gonna get to you for sure. We're talking about the now. Let's read it again. As statistical studies prove, more than a third of the population was Negroid. And conversely, how can one claim that the Egyptians of pharaonic times were Negroes, which means, according to those who use the term, that they were the same physical type as the present day inhabitants of West Africa? So now what they want to do is divide African culture based off of physicality. So if you have West African traits, they consider you the Negroid type based off of what? The transatlantic slave trade. Because if you went to America, they don't want to say that you were there. You're not part of this culture at all. You understand? That's what they're trying to say. Because what they just finished telling you was this: both types are in some respect caricatures. How is it possible to speak of a white type when, as statistical studies prove, more than a third of the population was Negroid? Then they turn right around and say, conversely, how can one claim that the Egyptians of pharaonic times were Negroids, which means, according to those who use the term, that they were the same physical type as the present day inhabitants of West Africa? When the ancient Egyptians, so contradicting themselves right there. After the up here, the top statement clearly made it clear there's so many types of Negroids, you can even find the Caucasian look amongst us, amongst us. Silly. Anyway, let's go further. Negroes, which means, according to those who use the term, that they were the same physical type as the present day inhabitants of West Africa. When the ancient Egyptians themselves, in their very accurate wall paintings, admirably contrasted the West African Negro type with their own, which is totally different. I don't know about you, I'm gonna just pull something up here. Oh, let's just type in Amenhotep. Amenhotep the third. That's what they wanna show you on Amenhotep. They stopped showing Amenhotep the third's image. They want you to see that. They want you to see that, right? You can still see it, right? As we get closer to that tomb, this is him depicting himself. We get closer in that tomb, whose afro is that? Huh? Who's huh? Whose afro is that? This is in his tomb. Who is that? Who's that? This is the guy that's different than the West African. They look different. What's different about him and the West African? Can anybody tell me? Huh? You got some Fulani in West Africa too. You got you because it's a mixture. It's a mixing pot. Here go Aunt Tiffy's tomb. Oh, they look so different than West Africa. Let's go further. Let's go. I pulled this site up. I'm glad people started to use it more often. These are dancers. These are usually Greek in nature. With some of the brothers right there. They kicking it. This is it's just funny. There go Menhotel. We can go right into his tomb. There's no need to do he different than any West African you know? Y'all never seen a West African look like that before? He look different? He don't look West African. I done seen him with this tail in the back like this on afros before too in West Africa. He look different? So, this is the stuff we run into, right? This is the stuff we run into. These are the strange talking points. Let's go further. When the ancient Egyptians themselves, in their very accurate wall paintings, admirably contrasted this West African Negro type with their own, it totally didn't look different. Looked like any brother you see on the street right there, right? Touch a little more on this book before we get out of it. A distinction should be drawn between race and culture. I've always said that. In its language, writing, and mentality, there is no doubt that Egyptian civilization is first and foremost African. Thank you. Even if, over the millenniums, it borrowed certain cultural elements from its eastern neighbors. Its population, on the other hand, is clearly a product of the Nile Valley's position in the northeast corner of the African continent. As a corridor between Central Africa and the Mediterranean for thousands of years, the crossroads between Africa of the Atlantic and East Africa, the Africa of the Red Sea, and between Ethiopia and the Indian Ocean. It was the melting pot in which, from pre dynastic times, if not earlier, the various prehistoric African types and the occasional representative of the races of the Eastern marches met and mingled. It would be a vain and useless task to look here for a pure primitive race or homogeneous population. So we've covered a lot in that paragraph, right? Let's undress it a little bit. Egyptian civilization is first and foremost African. Period. Stop trying to take it out of there. Stop trying to put it somewhere else. Remember, Mediterranean used to be a locale between Palestine and India, Hindustan. As Arabs spread out, the term will spread out. Now it encompasses Egypt, the Arab Emirates, this, that, the other, and it's spreading even further. In a minute, it'll be the Sudan. In a minute, you'll be telling me Nahesi weren't black. You'll tell me they weren't even African. They'll become Mediterranean. A term that started in Palestine and India to describe the middle of the East, the Middle East, Mediterranean, has now grown as far as encompassing all of Egypt, part of Northwest Africa, Morocco, goes that far now. Libya, and so you don't think about the term, you just throw it out as a blanket term, but it wasn't around in ancient times, and it wasn't even profound until recently. Let's go further. Even if over the millenniums it borrowed certain cultural elements from its eastern neighbors, of course you're gonna borrow, you're gonna mingle. Who doesn't? You got the Amarna letters to show that. I pointed that out on when I was on the pseudo show, and I made that clear. Now it's in use. Now everybody can fall on it. Now we can go to it and see. But in those letters, it was mostly the East borrowing from where? Africa. Now, as a corridor between Central Africa and the Mediterranean for thousands of years, a crossroad. They keep saying Central Africa had nothing to do with it. Yet you'll find Twa dancers from the Congo. You can still find Twas, them earliest burials, and they're burying, this many people with the king. You finding their bodies. You finding them in statues. You finding them in Abdos, where Egypt got its foothold, where it began. So when you listen to these other cats and they're talking, not making sense, and they're saying statements that they don't agree with, I don't know where they get this mess from because it's not scientific, and in scientific journals, they fall flat. They fall flat. There is futile trying to bring up some of this goofy stuff they're bringing up. Silly. Its population, on the other hand, is clearly a product of the Nile Valley's position of the northeast corner of the African continent as a corridor between Central Africa and the Mediterranean for thousands of years, a crossroads between the Africa of the Atlantic and East Africa, the Africa of the Red Sea, and between Ethiopia and the Indian Ocean. Who knows where the Indian Ocean is at? It's way down south, ain't it? Yeah. So anytime you hearing guys telling you there's no Southern Africans there, when you got a term like Khoi still there, whole city was called Khoi. Who spoke that? Who had that name back in the day? Show me the other culture that had Khoi. Show me the other language that used the term. This is how dumb people are. They don't know what they say. With all due respect to everybody who has their opinion, they don't think about what they say. They don't really do good. They don't do research. They're waiting, like I said every show, they're waiting for somebody to tell them and give them information so that they can feel okay concerning what they think. Me, I'm different. Saber Reggie, he's different. The researchers around us are different. We will go, we will dig, we will find out. In my case, I'll go there physically sometimes. I wanna know. I wanna know. Not anything you have to pay. It's just something I go and I do because 'cause I'm interested, because I was given a mission by my uncle, TJ's daddy, Uncle Larry, who was from West Africa, who said, you are there, you are in Egypt." That's what Uncle Larry used to say before he passed away. "Now watch Shaka Zulu," and we would have to watch Shaka Zulu. I'm just telling you, that's how I got in the game. Clearly, last part of this, African types and the occasional representative of the races of the Eastern marches met and mingled. It would be a vain and useless task to look for a pure primitive race. What are you looking for? What are you trying to find? Of course, there's some mixture. From it just makes it clear. It was a melting pot in which from pre-dynastic times, if not earlier, the various prehistoric African types were there to kick it. Okay? And occasionally, it tells you, occasionally, you had some brothers from Asia, you had some brothers from Europe come over and kick it. Not all the time, occasionally, occasionally. I don't even have to get into I'll get into it anyway. If an attempt to study these various contacts is to be fruitful, it is essential, I think, to start by clarifying what different people understand by the words Negro and Negroid. To take an example, Junker defines one type of Negro on which he bases his discussion, but Obenga uses the word quite differently, since he applies it to the Nubians who have nothing in common with Junker's Negro. So you can see right there what they did. They're taking different types of black people and saying, "You're not black, you're not Negro," but the pigmentation of their skin. So they're telling you what they're doing. You're not gonna tell no and we're gonna get to that in a minute. The same is true of the word negroid, which also stands in urgent need of definition, as Anderson has clearly pointed out. And this is why I say Anderson is all messed up. He's using this Hamite thing. Look, right there. The second topic which I thought to be discussed is that of the definition of the Hamite. Fruitless, racist conversation. This topic should be look, right here. This topic should be extended to cover the connections linking this race, if it is allowed to have existed, with the Negroes on the one hand, and on the other with the fossil African races discovered in Africa in the last few decades. There are classifications of Africans taking some Africans out of being black and others as "you're black, but you're white," the famous Zahi Hawass statement. All the importance since recent work in Lower Nubia and Sudan and in Asia is producing new evidence about a problem which is very largely an ethnic one and is more complex than is generally supposed, meaning that you're seeing black people populating the world, creating other cultures. The black people with those type of genes, you don't want to have those powers, so you call them black but not Negro, and that's where they run into this problem. And because we're only covering the forward, we'll get to the rest of that forward on the next show as we start to move past it. But let's go over here. Remember, this book corrects, and so does this one. We'll get to the titles of these books in a minute, as I did on the last show. The point about all these conclusions is that despite their discrepancies, the degree to which they converge proves that the basis of the Egyptian population was Negro in the pre-dynastic epoch. Okay? That's what they telling you right here. Telling you right here. Cro-Magnoid. Remember all this up here? In case you forgot, we'll do a quick recap, right? We'll even add the pictures with it. Falkenberger reopened the anthropologic study of the Egyptian population in a recent work in which he discusses 1,787 male skulls, varying in date from old pre dynastic to our own day. He distinguishes four main groups. The sorting of the pre-dynastic skulls into these four groups gives the following results for the whole pre-dynastic period: 36% Negroid, 33% Mediterranean, 11% Cro-Magnoid, and 20% of individuals not falling in any of these groups, but approximating either to the Cro-Magnoid or to the Negroid. The proportion of Negroids is definitely higher than that suggested by Thompson and Randall McIver. So they're talking about Anderson and them right now. Though Keith considers the latter too high. Do Falkenberger's figures reflect the reality? It is not our task to decide this if they are accurate. The pre-dynastic population, far from representing a pure breed race. So we all have concurred that there's no pure culture here. But we're still talking about African cultures. Let's see. Pre-dynastic population, far from representing a pure breed race, as Elliott Smith has said, comprised at least three distinct racial elements: over a third of Negroids, a third of Mediterraneans, a tenth of Cro-Magnoids, and a fifth individuals crossbreed to varying degrees. Now, when we look at look at this 36%, 33%. When we look at who he's talking about, because he starts to talk about the Libyans, we have to look at the old Libyans. Let's pull up the old Libyans real quick. Let's see who they are. Now, we did this on Saber Reggie's. Yeah, we did it on his show just the other night when he was on Sinatra. The Tubo are ethnic group native to the Tibet Sea Mountains that inhabit the Central Sahara in southern Chad, southern Libya, and northwestern Niger. They live either as herders and nomads or as farmers near oases. So we know they deal with cattle culture. We know that, right? Let's see what they look like. Here goes the mixture of here goes that people mixture. They're here, Libya, Niger, Chad. They're all up in here in Egypt and up here, down here, Sudan, okay? And there they go right there. There they go right there. These are the people they're saying aren't black. These are the people they're saying aren't Negroid. These are the ones they're saying they're black, but they're white. The Go Rain woman. That's her. That's them. Black, but they're white. What are you talking about? Many Tubo people still follow a semi-nomadic pastoralist lifestyle. Those who prefer a settled life typically live in palm thatched rectangular or cylindrical mud houses. They still in the cut, man. Ain't nobody going nowhere. Look at them. Look at them. This is a depiction in 1821 by George Francis Leon. They've been there. This is them. This is that Nilotic feature that they want to cut out. This is that Cushitic feature they want to cut out. These are the ancient Egyptians. The Libyan side that they call the Nahesi side. This is why Saber Reggie's pulling this up. And most of the older pictures that they have issues with, like when there's an issue between the Nahesi and the, Libyans of those times, it's beef with these guys, and it's beef with the European looking Nahesi, or with the European looking, Libyan, the Arab looking Libyan. They show it on the wall. We showed you before, on Smash's show. We pulled up a, inscription. I pulled it from the Journal of Egyptian Archaeology, Amos and Kamos. He said that some Nahesi had moved to Libya in the journal, in the journal, and we read the Medu Neter to make sure and verify it. Said Nahesi this, Nahesi that, Nahesi this type of Nahesi, this Nahesi, from, Kaseti, this Nahesi over here from, such and such. They all live in Libya. They're all in Libya right now. These are those originals. Let me see what y'all talking about in here. Gina, hey, I see you. Joe, I see you. Rex Lux, I see you. And don't trip, cause when we get over when we get we're gonna touch the European, we're gonna touch the Persian, but it's important to know where these initial parts come from. You have to know where this comes from so you can tell the story correctly. So when I do this class, because 'cause I'm gonna do the class, that means you'll be responsible for homework and all that stuff for those who it's already people that do classes with me. When I start to do these classes, you're not gonna have no guesswork. You're not gonna have no you'll be able to go tell the story, and good luck if anybody's in Egyptology, Nubiology, forensic science that tries to prove you incorrect. Because 'Cause I've been putting this story together for a long time, and we out there. We out there. You understand? We out there. So the point of let's start here. The point about all these conclusions is that despite their discrepancies, the degree to which they converge proves that the basis of the Egyptian population was Negro in the pre-dynastic epoch. Thus, they are all incompatible with the theories that the Negro element only infiltrated into Egypt at a late stage. Anybody pushing that rhetoric, get them out of here. Stop listening. Stop, because that's what junks your mind up. That's what messes you up. I don't care about they phony conclusions. "Oh, see here, he's tan in this picture with faded paint on it." That's not gonna fly. That's not gonna fly because you don't all this over here, when I start getting all that DNA stuff, we'll get to that later. Cause I ain't touched them on the DNA yet. I'm trying to be nice. You'll hear me on these shows. I don't hop in and project too much unless you disrespect. I try to be nice. Let's go. Thus, they are all incompatible with the theories that the Negro element only infiltrated into Egypt at a late stage. So that's a lie. We can get that out of here. Far otherwise, the facts prove that it was preponderant from the beginning to the end of Egyptian history, particularly when we note once more that the Mediterranean is not a synonym for white. Any Europeans listening, don't get upset at that. You knew what they was trying to do back in the day. Unless you stand with those racists, raise your hand so we can know who you are. Because these are the facts. We're not talking to guesswork. We just talking about the facts today. All right. Elliot Smith's brown or Mediterranean race being nearer the mark. Elliot Smith classes these Proto-Egyptians as a branch of what he calls the brown race. What's the term for brown in ancient Egypt? Kim, black. Which is the same as Sergey's Mediterranean or Eurafrican race. I've shown y'all Sergey before anybody start talking about him because they didn't even know where to start the discussion at. So we did it on this show. The term brown is the term brown in this context refers to skin color and is simply a euphemism. It's a euphemism for Negro. Anyone talking that brown talk, huh? Let's go right and say it right here. What do it say? What's the name of this book? Ancient Civilizations of Africa. The term brown in this context refers to skin color and is simply a euphemism for Negro. It is thus clear that it was the whole of the Egyptian population which was Negro, barring an infiltration of white nomads in proto-dynastic epoch. Are we clear? From the Libyans on down, if you was there, you was a Negro in the early stages. Don't trip, because when we get to white and Arab, Imma be fighting just as hard. You'll be like, what did Asar say?" Because we have to establish each one of y'all so you can see who you are and be an Asar, know what's going down. But stop it with this goofy business. What is brown? The next time, say, "We're brown, not black." One of these my Moorish brothers, so you can knock it off. Are we clear? Let's go further, because there's more in this. Remember last time we read Petri? We went in here. I told y'all didn't know how to use Petri, and we showed you how to use it. Many authorities get around the difficulty today by speaking of red-skinned and black-skinned whites without their sense of common logic being in the least upset. They're already telling you what's going on. So this you can now see the nonsense, okay? This is the nonsense that was being pushed. Let's go. I'll read this just because. Nevertheless, in current textbooks, the question is suppressed. In most cases, it is simply and flatly asserted that the Egyptians were white, and the honest layman is left with the impression that any such assertion must necessarily have a prior basis of solid research. And y'all are mad. Kamala, sit your punk down because you ain't got no business disrespecting black curriculum in those schools in Florida. That's why I told y'all electing her is not a good thing. Biden is a temporary. We just needed Trump out. Neither one of them was good for the country, but they was better than the alternative at the time. She over here fighting Florida schools who giving you curriculum. She mad at that. And we showing you right here how racist it was. Nevertheless, in current textbooks, at the time this was put out, it was still racial. Now, but there is no such basis as this chapter has shown, and so generation after generation has been misled. You're misled. Chief X, where you going? No, turn left. You went right. Turn left. You're misled, kid. Many authorities skate around the difficulty today by speaking of red skinned and black skinned whites without their sense of common logic being in the least upset. The Greeks call Africa Libya, a misnomer. Abinito, since Africa contains many other peoples besides the so called, who begin among the whites of the northern or Mediterranean periphery, and hence are many steps removed from the brown or red skinned white Egyptians, as they put it. Right? That's what you were seeing in those textbooks back in the day. So here it goes. In a textbook intended for the middle secondary school, we find the following sentence. A black is distinguished less by the color of his skin, but there are black-skinned whites. What? Y- Than by his features, thick lips, flattened nose. It is only through these twistings of the basic definitions that it has been possible to bleach the Egyptian race. You understand what's going on? This is the racism. Nobody wants to talk about this. Nobody wants to talk about this. We gotta talk about it though. We gotta talk about it. So watch this. Watch this. The study of human images made by Flinders Petrie on other plane shows that the ethnic type was black. Done. So when you see that afro and somebody says, "That's not an afro," it's an afro. That's what they meant by it. According to Petrie, these people were the Anu. Who? The Anu, not the Amu, the Anu, whose name known to us since the protohistoric epoch is always written with three pillars on the few inscriptions extant from the end of the fourth millennium before our era. The natives of the country are always represented with unmistakable chiefly emblems for which one looks in vain among the infrequent portrayals of other races, who are all shown as servile foreign elements have reached the valley of infiltration. So they show you this. Now, last show I tried to show you a Terranetta. Y'all said it didn't come up, right? Let's pull up Terranetta. Here go Terranetta. Let me check and see if y'all can see. Can y'all see? Y'all can see? Can't look at them. See it, Sar? We can't see. Alright, so let me reshare. That's what I needed to know. Let me make sure we sharing. Let me reshare the screen. Boom. Can y'all see now? Oh, you can see now. You can see now, brother. You see it now? Let me know if you can see it now. Alright, that last. Hello. Y'all can see that. That's Terra Netra right there. There he is. And Imma go to the screen where he's at so we can blow him up. That's Terra Netra. You see him? You see our brother? Let's back up. Let's go to another one. There we go. That's the Anu. That's the Anu. You can see his name right here at the bottom. Terra Netra. You don't have to guess. You don't have to guess. That's why I had to check because last time I knew y'all couldn't see. This time we checking. This time we checking. So let me come back. I want to make sure. Did y'all see this? Let me make sure y'all seen that. Make sure y'all seen that before I step to the other one. All right, yeah. There we go. All right, y'all can see again. There it is. Y'all see that right there, right? Let me scoot up in case y'all missed what I was reading. You see in the textbook, the middle school kids right there, huh? You see here, the textbooks, huh? You see the classification. You see it right there. You see what's going on. I'm just making sure we bring it back. Make sure y'all get to see everything. Arabian Desert, Lower E, all of that. Let's go up a little further in case you missed the other part. There's them percentages, Falkenberger's figures, Proto-Egyptians as a branch of white he calls the brown race. Here we go. This one is important. I gotta make sure y'all got this one. The term brown in this context refers as a euphemism simply Negro. Y'all see that, right? Still see Terra Netra? Hold up. Let me come back. Let me make sure we get it. Make sure we get the Make sure it's share screen, share screen. Let me click my window. Boom. You got it. You can see now. Here we go. The term brown in this context refers to skin color and is simply a euphemism for Negro. It is thus clear that it was the whole of the Egyptian population which was Negro, barring an infiltration of white nomads in the proto-dynastic epoch. We clear? Yeah, we good. I see it right there. We straight. Absolutely. Now, let's get back to the grind. So y'all see it. Y'all see it. And we went to Petri. Went to Petri, didn't we? This is when we got to them damn school books. In current textbooks, the question is suppressed in most cases. It is simply and flatly asserted that the Egyptians were white. Red skin and black skin whites without their sense of common logic being the least up. You see it. I gotta watch my chat more often. Kofi told me that a long time ago. Now, we're here, Terra Necha, race of Anu, moreover worshipped as we shall see later, men like their chief god. Egypt was called by the tradition of Egypt itself, the great Negro. He was what? He was what? The natives of the country are always represented with unmistakable, chiefly emblems for which one looks in vain among the infrequent portrayals of other races, who are all shown as servile foreign elements having reached the valley by infiltration. Terranecha and the Scorpion King, who Petri groups together. The Scorpion King belonged to the preceding race of Anu. Moreover, he worshipped Men and Set. As we shall see later, Men, like the chief gods of Egypt, was called by the tradition of Egypt itself the Great Negro. What is the name of ancient Egypt? The Great Black. What do we always tell you? Kim where? Kim Ur. What is the name of ancient Egypt? The Great Black. Who is Men? Usually looks like Heru, don't he? Looks like Asar, don't he? He is the Great Black. He is Kim where? He is Kim where? So we don't have to do the guesswork over here. We got it already. We got it's in a nutshell. It's in a nutshell. And the more I go down, this one to get worse, right? This one to get real bad. This one is gonna get real bad real quick. We're gonna get real bad real quick. This way you don't have to guess no more. Valley with the indigenous blacks. Petrie describes the latter, the Anu, in the following terms. Besides these types belonging to the north and east, there is the aboriginal race of the Anu. The aboriginal. You're gonna use aboriginal, use it right. This is the way you should use it. Or Anu people, written with three pillars, who became a part of the historic inhabitants. The subject ramifies too doubtfully if we conclude all single pillar names. But looking for the Anu written with the three pillars, we find that they occupied southern Egypt and Nubia. And the name is also applied in the Sinai and Libya. As to the southern Egyptians, we have the most essential document, one portrait of a chief Terranecha, roughly modeled in a relief in green glazed faience, found in the early temple at Abydos. Preceding his name, his address is given on the earliest of visiting cards. Palace of the Anuan Hemen city, Terranecha. Hemen was the name of the god of Tufium, Ermin. Opposite to it was the palace of Anu of the south, Anu Menti. The next place in the south is Anti, Gaphelion, and beyond that, Antiseni, Esna. For those of you who don't know what Esna is, it's a place where the Greeks frequented. Amlaniu lists in geographical order the fortified towns built along the length of the Nile Valley by the Anu Blacks. By the who? By the Anu Blacks. It's okay to use the word. Stop being like these other pseudo cats who don't want to use the word because they're not really familiar with the discussion. They're doing guesswork. The first one we have is Ant. C-I-N-T and in the city. In this the Newit symbol. Ant. Esna. Ant right here. On. Ant on. This is Hermonthis. Ant Sheret, where Aset was birthed, supposedly. Chenet over here. This is On as well. It's another part of On. This is Heliopolis or the Sun City. You see it on. You see all those depictions for it. One, two. You see all those depictions for it. It's not important though. Let's get to the important stuff. They start talking about Annie, and they start talking about some things here in a minute. Which let me see how I want to do this for y'all. We just go straight forward. We just go straight forward. It'll just make it easy. The common ancestor of the Anu settled along the Nile was Ani or An, a name determined by the word Ket, and which dating from the earliest versions of the book of coming forth by day onwards is given to the god Asar. The wife of Ani, the god Ani, is the goddess Anet, who is also his sister, just as Aset is the sister of Asar. The identity of the god An with Osiris has been demonstrated by plate. We should indeed recall that Asar is also surnamed by the Anu, Asar Ani. The god Anu is represented alternatively by the symbol Anu, they're showing you the symbol, are the Anak tribes now inhabiting the Upper Nile related to the ancient Anu. Future research will provide the answer to this question. Let's go further down. We're gonna we're gonna skip Petrie's portion. It's not important. The mural in tomb SD-63 of Heracanopolis shows the native-born blacks subjugating the foreign intruders into the valley if we accept Petrie's interpretation. So even Petrie knew what he was looking at. He says, below is the black ship at Heracanopolis, belonging to the black men who are shown as conquering the red men. So this is not our words. This is Petrie telling you. Below this black ship at Heracanopolis, belonging to the black men who are shown as conquering the red men. That's what he said. Let me make sure y'all see that before I go any further. Oh yeah, y'all see that. Y'all know what it is. Imatep, I see y'all. Jason, I see you. Gina, I see you, sis. So you see it. This is Petrie's word. If you're gonna use Petrie right. Stop playing. The Gebel El Arak knife have shows similar to battle scenes. There are also combats of black men overcoming red men. However, the archaeological value of this object, which was not found in situ, but in the possession of a merchant, is less than that of the preceding items. What the above shows is that the images of men in the prehistoric and even of the dynastic period in no way square with the idea of the Egyptian race popular with Western anthropologists. So anthropology of the West stating, oh, European is this, that, over there, this Euro African, denied, denied. No way square with the idea of the Egyptian race popular with Western anthropologists. They're not feeling it. Wherever the Achan Autochthonous racial type is represented with any degree of clearness, it is evidently Negroid. Nowhere. You there? You ain't never there. Nowhere are the Indo-European and Semitic elements shown, even as ordinary freemen serving a local chief, but invariably as conquered foreigners. The rare portrayals found are always shown with the distinctive marks of captivity, hands tied behind the back or strained over the shoulders. A proto-dynastic figurine represents an Indo-European prisoner with a long plate on his knees, with his hands bound tight to his body. The characteristics of the object itself show that it is intended as the foot of a piece of furniture and represented a conquered race. Often the portrayal is deliberately grotesque, as with other proto-dynastic figures, showing individuals with their hair plaited in what Petrie calls pigtails. So when you see Europeans over there in the images, it's often tied up, uh, being dealt with. It's showing their conquer at this time in ancient Egypt. So when you become captive, of course, you know Egyptians treated captives the best, treated you the best in the ancient world. After you got branded, which is not cool, but that's part of war, you had the ability to move up in culture without question, and we see plenty of them. But this is how they're shown. Here we go. The characteristics of the object itself show that it was intended as the foot of a piece of furniture and represented a conquered race. Often the portrayal is deliberately grotesque, as with other proto dynastic figures. So you know what it is. But here's where it gets in depth. In the tomb of King Ka, first dynasty at Abydos, Petrie found a plaque showing an Indo European captive in chains with his hands behind his back. Elliot Smith considers that the individual represented is a Semite. Of course, they were pushing the Semite thing. The dynastic epoch has also yielded the documents illustrated in PLS 1 through 9 and 1.14, showing Indo European and Semitic prisoners. In contrast, the typically Negroid features of the pharaohs, Narmer, First Dynasty, the actual founder of the pharaonic line, Zoser, Third Dynasty, by whose time all the technological elements of the Egyptian civilization were already in evidence, not 12th Dynasty with foreigners doing it. Chief X. They're already in place. Cheops, the builder of the Great Pyramid, a Cameroon type. I ain't say it, they said it. Cheops, the builder of the Great Pyramid, looks like a Cameroonian. Looks like he's from Cameroon. Mentuhotep, founder of the 11th dynasty, very black. Sesostris the First, Queen Amosis, Nefertari, and Amenophis the First show all the classes of Egyptian society belong to the same black race. Who? Cheops, the builder of the Great Pyramid, a Cameroon type. Mentuhotep, founder of the very black Sesostris, Queen Amo. They're naming them for you. We ain't got to do this. I don't have to say this. They're saying it. You just don't read. You just don't read. You don't really know. Showing the Indo-European and Semitic types have been included deliberately to contrast them with the quiet, dissimilar physiognomies of the black pharaohs and to demonstrate clearly that there is no trace of either the first two types in the whole line of pharaohs if we exclude the foreign Libyan and Ptolemaic dynasties. Are we clear? It is usually a contrast to the negresses. They might as well just go on and say the N word, right? The negresses. What is a negress? On the tomb of Horemheb, with the Egyptian type also shown. This contrast is surely a false one. It is a social and not ethnic, and there is as much difference between an aristocratic Senegalese lady from the car and those antique African peasant women with their horny hands and splay feet as between the latter and an Egyptian lady of the cities of antiquity. There are two variants of the black race. See, over here, they're gonna make and look, I didn't even get to this part. Who they point out? I ain't even gonna lie to you. I ain't even get to this part. I pulled up the T-Bow on my own. Straight hair represented in Asia by the Dravidians and in Africa by the Nubians and the T-Bow or Teta, all three with jet black skins. The kinky haired blacks of the equatorial regions. Both types entered into the composition of the Egyptian population. What are you talking about? We're not even gonna touch the melanin dosage test. You're not ready for that. Let's go to the third book so we can end out. Today. So it's a bite-sized portion. So you can get your pen out, you can write this down, you can go on your podcast and no, see in this book, right? You see, you guys got it wrong. And then you can also go to these locations, start to pull up these entries, start to show the tombs. See, what you're saying is a lot. This is what we need you to do. This is how I know you did your work. Nubia and Egypt from the late Paleolithic. It seems curious that Nubia is usually ignored when it comes to the world's earliest food production. You know what? I'm not even going to do this one. I'm not even going to touch it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm coming to the chat for a second. We're coming to the chat. Let me stop sharing. Let me stop sharing for a minute. You guys understand what just happened right there? You see how simple that was to debunk some of these characters who come out with this whole I ain't even get into the DNA. I just sent something to my brother Pan African James. I sent something to my let me share again. Let me share again on the way out the door. Want to share it again. Let me see. Windows. This way it shows the whole thing. I just gave some to my brother African James. Go run grab this. Go grab this. We ain't get here yet. I hope they get their genetic game together. I didn't get to this yet. I didn't get to this part yet. I ain't touched it yet. I ain't touched none of that yet. You know what this yeah. 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 I ain't get to none of that yet. We ain't touched none of this yet. All this LO went over here, over here, all up in here, came out of here, went over here, went over here, came back in here. Huh? We talk look, the L marker over here, the L marker starts down here. We didn't get to that yet. We didn't get to the koi sign moving around yet. Because once they start moving around, guess what? Guess what? Your argument gonna have to move around. Guess what? Huh? That's down here. That's down south, man. This is science. I don't know what the hell they talking about. I ain't never seen that stuff they talking about. That stuff they talking about, that ain't science. I don't where'd you get it from? That's all the chat kept saying, "Where's your source?" They ain't got no source. They ain't doing no research. They just talking. They want your attention. It's a bunch of attention whores. It's a bunch of attention when the attention whore hops up, They want all the attention. You get the floor and you say a bunch of nothing. Say nothing. Then you start looking around when somebody starts saying something. Somebody starts saying something, then you wanna cut them off. Then you got to hop in. Then you got to but you ain't saying nothing. You don't know. Sit your $5 down before we make change. We ain't get to none of this yet, man. Let me stop sharing, man. Let me stop. So, real quickly, real quickly. I know it. What's gonna happen is we'll I think I've do I need to point out more black stuff or we good? We good, chat? We good? This'll hit about 100 views, which is cool. That's all we need. We don't need a whole bunch. I don't need a million cats over here pulling on my I make money. I'm good. We do it to set the record straight. What I want you to do is 100 of y'all when I create the book, just purchase the book for me, please. Do that. And the book ain't gonna be no crazy amount of money. It's gonna be nice and affordable, like $13. Do that for me. But right now, very simply, anybody coming with this nonsensical stuff, like when I pulled out the cattle the other day on Brother Smash's show, I know they didn't know that. I know they wasn't familiar with that. It's new research. I know they don't know. But I've been on to this for a while because I'm doing some of the research too. I'm the one pulling them side features out for you with the Ma'a language, as if it wasn't Seshu Ma'a Ni Meru Necha. Where you think the Ma'a came from? Why you think they got so many cognates with each other? Why you think it's easy to put together? Because all you had to do was turn to Inner Africa to put these pieces together. So, I believe I've driven the point home about the black element starting ancient Kemet. I don't think we need to go further into that to you, say but, uh, Jason Edwards and Puduwa. Uh, I don't think we need to drive the point home any further with them. So next, we need to see who else was in ancient Egypt because we do have our Arab brothers. They're saying, "Hey, we're here now." We need to see how you got there, and we need to go in depth of who is there, who was there, in order, in order, and then we'll get to our European element after we get to our Arab element to see how you got there, to see what's going on with this Mediterranean thing, especially on the cusp of Zion Lex and Saber Reggie about to discuss uh, ancient Sumer, especially on the cusp of that. So we gotta look at some ancient Greek statements, yes. And we also have to look at some some excavation. You know what it is. You know what it is. I could show you a billion burial sites and this, that, the other, but it's not gonna make sense until we start to put these things together. Pottery is one of the biggest things. You see red and black top pottery, you know who's there. You know it's Nehesi. How do you know it's Persians there? They've got a pottery too. Mm. How do you know it's Greeks there? They've got signs of distinction as well. But what we're not gonna do is keep allowing the goofies to hop in the mix and act as if they know when they don't know. They do not know, and they don't know how to put it together, and they don't study. They just say what feels good, and some of y'all entertain that because it's entertaining to listen to people battle. But to be honest, the information is such a landslide, is why are we discussing it? What's up, Zoo 221? It's ridiculous. And so now we have to bottom some of this stuff out. What up, Amin Ross? We gotta body some of this stuff out, man. And it's easy to do. It's easy to do because I've been over there. I know what's what, where it's at, and how to get to it. It's not that difficult. But with that said, we're gonna keep it short. You know how I do. I'm in and out. Robbery, in and out. Remember who you are and being a star. Uncle, I said that. Uncle Johnson. Do I, do I for listening. Appreciate you all, and we will cover more soon. Immature.